When you think about it, photosynthesis is, well, it's everything, right? It's this quiet, constant process that powers pretty much all life on Earth. It pulls carbon out of the air, uses sunlight to build the plants we eat, makes the oxygen we breathe. It's the foundation of, well, everything. It's beautiful, it's essential, and believe it or not, it's got a huge flaw.
So, what if I told you that the single most important chemical reaction on the planet has a major bug, a built-in error that's been holding back plant growth for millions of years, and one that scientists are now racing to fix?
All right, so to really get why this is such a big deal, we gotta pop the hood, so to speak, and take a quick look at how a plant actually grabs carbon and turns it into food.
Okay, so right at the very center of all this is something called the Calvin cycle. Just think of it like the plant's engine room. It's where the real magic happens, turning plain old CO2 into the sugars that the plant needs to live and grow.
So check this out. This is the very first and maybe the most important step. You've got this special enzyme. He's kind of the hero of our story, and its job is to reach out and just grab a CO2 molecule. By sticking it onto a sugar molecule, it kicks the whole cycle into gear.
And that little hero enzyme, it's got a name. It's called Rubisco. And honestly, it's impossible to overstate how important this thing is. I mean, it is by far the most common protein on the entire planet. The amount of Rubisco out there working right now literally shapes our world.
So, just how much are we talking about here? Well, get this. Inside a normal plant leaf, Rubisco can make up almost 40% of all the soluble protein. That's a massive investment for a plant to make in just one thing, right? But its job is just that critical.
But, and this is a big but, here comes the twist. For all its importance, our hero, Rubisco, has this massive fundamental flaw. It's basically a case of mistaken identity that just wastes a ton of energy.
See, the thing is, Rubisco evolved a long time ago, back when the Earth's atmosphere had way less oxygen. And that's the problem. Today's air is full of oxygen, and Rubisco, well, it gets confused. It doesn't just bind with carbon dioxide anymore. Okay, so this slide lays it out perfectly. You've got two possibilities for Rubisco. On the left, carboxylation. That's the goal. Rubisco grabs CO2, the plant gets carbon, it grows. Simple. But then, on the right, you have photorespiration, and this is the problem. Every so often, Rubisco messes up and grabs an oxygen molecule instead. And when that happens, it's a disaster. The plant doesn't just not gain carbon, it actually loses carbon it already had and wastes a ton of precious energy trying to clean up the mess.
Yeah, to put it simply, this whole photorespiration thing is just incredibly wasteful. It's like the plant is taking 2 steps forward with photosynthesis and then 1 giant step back every time Rubisco makes this mistake. It's literally undoing its own hard work, and that's what limits how fast a plant can grow.
But evolution is pretty smart. Over millions of years, some plants figured this out. They came up with these brilliant little workarounds. You could call them photosynthesis hacks to deal with Rubisco's big screw-up.
So the core idea is pretty straightforward. If Rubisco keeps grabbing oxygen by mistake, what do? Well, you just surround it with so much CO2 that it basically can't miss. And that's what these plants did. They evolved these amazing CO2 concentrating mechanisms. It's like having a VIP carbon delivery service right to Rubisco's doorstep.
And basically, there are 2 major strategies they use to pull this off. One is a spatial solution, called C4 photosynthesis, and the other is a temporal or time-based solution known as CAM.
All right, first, let's talk about C4. Plants like corn and sugarcane do this. It's like a little assembly line. You see, they use 2 different kinds of cells. In the outer cells, they grab CO2 and pack it into a special 4-carbon acid. Then they shuttle that acid deep inside to another set of cells. Once it's there, they break it down and poof, it releases the super concentrated burst of CO2 right where Rubisco is hanging out. All that CO2 just swamps the oxygen, so photorespiration basically stops happening.
Then you've got CAM plants like cacti and pineapples. They're super smart, especially in hot, dry places. They use time as their secret weapon. At night, when it's cool, they open up all their little leaf pores, drink in a ton of CO2, and store it as an acid. Then, during the hot day, they slam those pores shut to save water. And inside the leaf, they release all that stored acid, which turns back into CO2, creating that high-carbon environment for Rubisco. It's brilliant. They get their carbon, and they don't dry out.
So, this all leads to a really big question, right? If nature figured out these awesome hacks, can we do it too? And that's where we are now. Modern science is looking at these natural solutions and thinking, hey, maybe we can use this to supercharge the crops we all depend on.
Exactly. The big idea here is to take the lessons from C4 and CAM plants and apply them to our most important food crops. Think rice, wheat, and potatoes. All these plants that are still stuck with that wasteful photorespiration process. We're talking about bioengineering a more efficient plant from the ground up.
And scientists are trying a bunch of really cool things. I mean, they're trying to literally install the entire C4 engine into a rice plant. They're trying to re-engineer Rubisco itself to make it faster and less clumsy. They're even designing these new photorespiration bypasses to grab that wasted carbon and recycle it right back into the system. It's amazing stuff.
And listen, this isn't just something out of a sci-fi movie. It's actually happening. In some of the first field trials, just by adding one key C4 gene into rice, they saw yields go up by 10 to 30%. That is a huge deal. It just shows you the incredible potential we're talking about here.
When you boil it all down, the goal is really simple. We want to reduce waste on a microscopic level so we can boost growth on a global scale. And in doing so, help make the global food supply a whole lot more secure.
And so that leaves us with this massive, thought-provoking question. As our population keeps growing and the climate keeps changing, the pressure on our food systems is just going to get more and more intense. So could hacking photosynthesis, could creating these supercharged plants, be the key to sustainably feeding our future?